Hello, everybody, and welcome to another market update. It's been quite a long time since we've done one of these, but things have definitely been busy at the firm, which is good. We've been really kind of hitting things hard and growing things and really setting course for the year and for 2023. And we're really excited to really engage with you guys more and start this sort of media up again, where we're doing sort of these maybe more quick hit style updates, and maybe even a daily sort of quote unquote radio morning show, just depending on how things go on, just to give you guys insights of things that we're seeing. Maybe you're just curious, maybe you're in the market, maybe you're thinking about buying or selling, whatever the case. It's good to come to a platform and just be able to share the things that we're seeing in a light that hopefully helps you guys make some better decisions, or just correlate things across your lives, whether that's in real estate or anything else. I think we're definitely pressing into some times that are a little crazy, to say the least. And as much information as we can really gather to understand the world around us as best we can. And so our avenue to do that and to help is through real estate and, connecting sort of the macro market. But I think that's relevant because, it really does affect everybody's lives. The real estate market is in everybody's lives, whether you're a homeowner or a renter or a landlord or a tenant, an investor, you work in finance. It doesn't matter. Real estate touches everybody's lives, and as an asset class, it impacts everybody's lives. I would say there's a large majority of Americans' wealth and household spending and what sort of discretionary income do you have is really dependent on the housing market, whether it's the value of a house in sort of the equity position that you might have, or the rent that you're paying, and the rent rates that you're paying. Certainly everybody's felt those two things get hit pretty hard this year, and that has a real impact on everybody's day-to-day life. So we're here to help kind of pull the curtain back a little bit and understand it as maybe even a little bit more, or help see things from our perspective. So we really do want to kind of dive into these on a more frequent basis, and would love to hear your guys' feedback about either topics to cover, questions that you have. Certainly, if you have questions, don't hesitate to let us know. Just go ahead and post them right in chat, and hopefully as we're live, we can engage immediately. But even if you're watching this back at a different point in time, we can engage in comments and stuff there as well. And sorry, you'll have to excuse me. I've been having a cough for a couple of weeks, so I definitely don't want to do that in the microphone because that wouldn't be any good. So I may mute from time to time. But let's go ahead and jump in just for today. Again, kind of a quick, brief little update. I don't imagine this is going to take all that long, but hopefully we'll cover some pretty good stuff just to see, kind of what do things feel like. And the last time that I talked to you guys was, I don't know, July. And rates were still around 4.5%, 5%, right? And I think if you remember at that time, for anybody that has been watching these or following along, I was, sitting here making assumptions that, or I would say, talking about things that people, I don't know if they wanted to agree with, or some people thought I was crazy, which is fine. Everybody's, able to see things a bit differently. But, I was making comments that we might see interest rates mortgage rates between 7 and 9% by the end of the year, which is astounding considering, we're still somewhere in the neighborhood of 4.5% then. And that's a pretty big hike. And, we sit here today and things are around, they've touched 7, maybe a bit higher in parts of the country, and they've come down in the most recent week, which we'll take a look at some of those things and why that may have happened. But we're here, and we talked about it earlier this year, and you never really know how things are going to go, but it doesn't take much of a rocket scientist to just look around at the things around you and kind of understand like what's the state that the world's in. I think macroeconomics is one of those things that people really try to overcomplicate and, get as cute as they want with all the metrics and data and analytics, but you don't need to overcomplicate macroeconomics. Like, things are usually pretty straightforward. And, if you adhere to Occam's razor, like, the simplest answer is the most, probable. And it doesn't take much to look at the little facts around us and make some educated guesses that aren't too out of the realm of possibilities. So enough of me talking about the random stuff. Let's just get into it, right? So this chart, and the first thing I'm going to do is take you guys through a couple of different charts that just kind of start to illustrate the picture, specifically in the Cedar Rapids housing market, as it's really starting to shape up. And this first one is a look at number of home sales in market versus active listings. And so already you can start to see a big divergence here. And the blue line is the number of active listings on the market. So how much inventory is really out there? Well, earlier this year, we were at record low inventories, and that's why we felt things moving within hours of hitting the market, or sometimes things were selling with competing offers before even touching the market, which is really kind of wild to think about, right? And there was very high competition amongst buyers. It was not uncommon for places to have 5 or more offers within a matter of hours of hitting the market. And if you're a seller, you're thinking, wow, this is amazing. Like, I just barely put a sign in my yard, and now I have more offers than I know what to do with. I don't even really know how to evaluate all these different offers. And in many cases, they were pushing the sale price much higher than the listing price. And so that's certainly the case. You can see that really all the way up through like May, where you see this sort of low inventory, kind of under 700, and the number of sales are very close, right? You're almost at a 1-to-1 rate here, meaning the cannibalization or the it's the word that I'm looking for. The absorption rate here is almost 1-to-1, right? Like, houses are going almost as fast as they can hit the market, which is firmly a seller's market, maybe even more than we've seen in history. And so, we saw prices reflect that. And that was the similar situation for part of 2021 as well, right? We started to get into that trend. And so that's sort of the skyrocketing in home prices that we saw over the last 12 months. But lately, really since June, and we'll take a look at some inflation data that really starts to kind of pair some of these things together, right? And like connect through these things on many different levels to put a more complete and accurate picture together of where we are probably headed. Because that's more important, right? Where are we going? Where we've been is great, but we can't do anything about where we've been. The only thing we can do is try to understand where we've been to make the best decisions that we can for the path forward. And so in June, you see sort of this peak where we hit number of sales kind of at the highest point of the year, and then it started to come down. But what hasn't come down is sort of that, well, I don't want to say selling fever, but the sales coming to market where you have people motivated, maybe sellers that were on the fence that were like, hey, my neighbor just sold their house in an hour and they got 5 offers and sold it for $30,000 above asking price. Why would I not sell my home, right? You kind of get some of that. And sometimes it takes a little bit. And so we continue to see homes come into the market over time. And now we've really almost doubled, right? So if we're below 600 in February, we're just below 1,200 now in November. And that's a substantial increase. It's hard to fathom sometimes what it means when something doubles, or to say it's gone from 600 to 1,200. It doesn't seem that crazy, but when you say it's doubled in 6 months, that's a substantial rate of increase. And in the meantime, we'll discount November a little bit because November's not finished, right? But if you look at October, in number of sales, we're just above 400. So again, we've peaked at, let's call it 620. Not really sure what this number, maybe it's 650. We'll call it 650. And it comes down to just above 400. That's a 30% decrease. So at the time that inventory is doubling, sales are coming down by 20 to 40%. And now you're really starting to get into this compounding effect where if we look at average days on market and months of inventory, we start to see kind of what does this mean, particularly if you're a buyer or seller in the market. And then ultimately, what is it going to do to home prices for everybody else, right? Because whether you're a buyer or a seller or not, your home value is affected by the market of the buyers and the sellers. Real estate is priced on the margins. So at any given time, let's say there's 20 million. I'm making a number up here. Let's say there's 20 million homes in market, but only 500,000 of them are for sale. Well, the value of all 20 million of those homes is affected by the 500,000 that are being bought and sold. So even if you're just, kind of sitting back, cruising along in your home ownership and you have no intention of buying or selling, your home value maybe went from 300,000 to 375,000, and now it's on its way back down. Well, what does that mean to you as somebody that's not even a buyer or seller? Well, it's great when the house prices are going up, because if you want to, you're getting sort of free equity in your home. That has nothing to do with your principal pay down. So that's great. You're getting free equity. And, a lot of savvy homeowners are accessing that or leveraging their asset, going and taking out a HELOC loan or a second mortgage, or getting a line of credit, a revolving line of credit, to access the available equity in their home without having to sell it. And that's sort of like the primo place you want to be, right? If you're a homeowner and you have a home that you bought maybe even 2 years ago at $300,000, sure, you've been paying a few $1,000 in principal pay down a month or a year, and you put 10, 15, 20% down, and so you got some equity there. Maybe you got sitting at a position of $260,000 owed on the house. You got $40,000 of available equity. That's pretty good. But when house prices skyrocket 20, 30, 40% in 2 years, now all of a sudden your home's not worth $300,000, it's worth $375,000. And if you get it reappraised, you go from $40,000 of equity to $115,000 of equity without having to do a single thing. No improvements, nothing. You're just getting the benefit of that rising market. And that's phenomenal. And a lot of people found themselves in that place, over the last 2 years. I certainly took advantage of it when it came up. Why would you not? And so what does the market mean now to those home prices? Well, if we look at, we saw, inventory is continuing to go up. Rate of sales are starting to slow down. So we know what supply and demand does. When supply catches up with demand, generally things fall, prices fall, right? You reach more of that equilibrium. And so if we look at, we can start to see how that equilibrium, or predict where that equilibrium will go in terms of home prices based on what's happening with new entries into the market, how fast things are being sold, and generally how long they're sitting, right? That's kind of why we're correlating these points here. So the green line on this chart is average days to sell, and it's on this left axis here. And now this is an average. So if we look at a median, which is maybe a little less skewed by some data points, and this is where statistics get, statistics, and you can make up whatever you want or look at it in a number of different ways. But I would say this average days on market is a little skewed. We have some listings out there in the Cedar Rapids market that have been on market for 2 years. They're really unique situations, right, that aren't indicative of the current housing market, but they're dragging that average up. So, yeah, it's 35 days down to 20 days and back up to 35. But I think I'm worried less about what the absolute number is and more about what the trend is, right? Because if we look at the median cut of this, which will kind of separate out those anomalies at the higher end that are really dragging out those averages, then you're probably going to see somewhere like, 20 down to 8 and back up to 20. I would guess if we, pulled it. And, heck, we can pull it if we want to. So let's just do that. Median days. Where are we at? Days to sell, median. None. Hey, pretty close. So I just pulled median, right? We went from 16 down to 4 up to 12. So pretty close. Just, as a look of saying like, hey, let's, sort out some of this data. So what this tells us is, sales, the absorption rate is a little lower. Sales are there, but they're not happening kind of at the rate. And then all of a sudden, the rate of sales picks up very quickly. And that's when things are going fast. We know that, back in June, it's the highest number of sales, and the squeeze of inventory is pretty low. So it's not surprising that days come down a lot. But now they're starting to go back up, right? It's sort of the inverse of this number of sales, which makes perfect sense. If there's less sales going on, that means the number of days on market, or that absorption rate, is slowing down. But here's the part that I think that's really interesting. Is you have this months of inventory on the right-hand side here. Excuse me. And it's low, right? So let's look at these numbers over here. And again, you can see this in the close parity of inventory available and number of sales. Is your consistently under 2 months for the majority of the year, and then all of a sudden you see this big tick up in November. Now, don't panic, right? Like we're mid-month. It's November 11th, Veterans Day. Thank you to all the veterans that have served. Thank you for your service. So the month still has to close out, and this number will tick back down as sales continue to happen throughout the year. But you see this sort of trend here. August, September, October, you're starting to tick up, right? And again, maybe it doesn't feel that much because you're going from 1.75 to 2.25, but that's 50%. That's a pretty substantial change. And then my guess would be if sales finish lower than October, so let's say somewhere in here in 350, you're going to land between 4 and 6 months of inventory. That is a dramatic change, almost month over month in market, especially if you're looking at selling. Now, we have some sellers on market right now that hit the market in mid-October, and they're feeling this, right? Maybe there's still a lot of activity. Maybe there's still a lot of showings happening, but maybe they're not getting offers, and they're wondering what the heck is going on. Maybe they've been doing price reductions. Maybe they've had to do 2 price reductions. And now, as a seller, you're thinking, wait, what the heck? My neighbor sold 3 months ago in 1 hour. In fact, not even 3 months ago. My neighbor sold in September in 4 hours over asking price. And now it's November 11th, and I have my house has been on market for 25 days, and it's the same house at the same price. Yes, but the circumstances are dramatically different today than they were 30 or even 60 days ago. This is how fast things are really evolving in real time. So ask yourself, if you're a seller on market, or if you're a seller that's looking, or a potential seller looking to sell, how does my agent understand this dynamic? Is my agent going to price something based on the market 3 months ago because the house down the street sold 3 months ago and it's the same house? So when they pull the comparable, we're just going to match that because, it's 3 months and how much could things have changed? The answer is a lot. And realistically, some people are going to get this and some people aren't. So I think, and the reason that this is so much more dramatic than maybe, I don't want to say ever in history, right? Because that's a broad statement, but more recent history is we haven't seen this in recent. You go back to 2019, sure, things are slowing down a little bit, but to go full steam ahead for 18 months and then immediately slam on the brakes, this is a unique situation. If you're thinking about selling your house, it's important to know this situation because it's going to affect you. And it's important that your agent knows this information. Because if your agent doesn't know this information, you're not going to be set up for success. One other thing we can look at really to start to correlate, like how is this all shaking out in the real world, is this median price. So where are things being priced on the market? How relevant is the house 3 houses down that sold 3 months ago for $200,000 and you're selling today expecting to list at $200,000? That might not be the case. Excuse me. Well, we can see that in this graph here. This graph, the green line is median original price. And so we see, look at the left axis here to see the values. So we go from 200,000 all the way up to 250,000 in a matter of months, which is absolutely wild, especially in a market like Cedar Rapids. Given median household incomes and property values, like 250,000 median sale price is insane. But cool, it happened, right? And it comes kind of back down to 205,000-ish, I guess, if we had to look at it. And then back up to 240 something. But now really we see this big drop off, right? And because we're mid-month in November, that's not really affecting this statistic, unlike this one where we're seeing mid-month, because median home price is those are as things are hitting the market. But you can see we've crossed under 200,000. Really for the first time this year. So back to your neighbor that sold 3 months ago that has the identical floor plan, identical upgrades. You both got a new roof from the derecho, gutters, siding, whatever. Inside's comparable. They listed for $240 and sold in an hour. And realistically, you might have to list at $180 because that's how much the market has changed. I'm not saying that home prices have fallen off $50,000 on a $200,000 price point. What I am really drawing out here is the market is different. And so comparable, that 240, you probably shouldn't expect to list at 240 in that price range. Now, it may be 215, it may be 205, it really kind of comes down to the circumstance, but we are really going to see that over the next 3 months that, I think we're going to hear noise from sellers, right? I think we're going to hear noise from sellers saying, "What the hell is going on? Why isn't my house worth $240? And why isn't my house selling?" Well, because things are different. So let's take a look a little bit at the market and understand kind of what that is, right? Most of that, not most of it, but a large kind of contributing factor here is CPI numbers, and this is the sort of the barometer that everybody, the Fed has been paying attention to, the market has been paying attention to. You've seen this dramatic swings in the market up and down, and we can correlate these things, right? So let's just take a look at this is the S&P 500, and so let's go to a daily look at the S&P 500 and kind of ignore my lines here. I think there's probably a way to, yep, there we go. So let's look at days. Let's go to June, right? When this is mid-June. This is June 16th, where we have this big sort of drop and kind of the market is at the bottom for this particular point. Let's go back. Let's look at things. Oh, man, that was when we had the most sales. Man, that's when things were on the market the least. But also, that's when CPI was the highest. Right? So you have the same sort of apex playing out in inflation data and CPI data and sort of this macroeconomic picture. And then the 10-year Treasury, which is really sort of indicative of what's going to happen in the market. You have some sort of this peak right here, right? Same thing, June 14th. Like all these things line up to the day. June 14th, we see that peak. What is this bottom? June 16th, right? So June 14th is really here. You see this big dramatic fall off. And then that's sort of what's happening. And then all of a sudden rates go, where did we go? Rates continue. You see a little bit of softening and then rates really start to rocket up, right? We know the Fed increased rates in February, I believe in June and July, July and August. So February, May, July, August, again in October. And so the Fed continuing to tick up these the rates of Fed funds is having some sort of effect on the 10-year, which we know. Well, like that's not it's not new information, right? But as it ticks up, you see this tick up. But then as you see the rate really start to tick up, which again has over doubled from the beginning of the year, then you see this big upswing here and this big slowdown here. That's where, and it was really sort of when we hit that 7%. Actually, let's take a look. It's really when we hit that 7%, right? September, October. These are national rates. They're averages, not indicative of any individual lending institution or your probability or the rate that you may receive. This is just directional data. But it was really, okay, so September and October when things hit 6 and 7%, and I think these are even a little bit low compared to some numbers I've seen, you really start to see, September and October, things are slowing down. It was like buyers were cool with 5%, but as soon as stuff hit 6 and 7%, buyers were like, nope, hold on a second. Things are crazy, right? Because now you're talking about, let's say your mortgage is $1,300 and 800 of that or 900 of that is interest. Well, on the same price point with double your interest rate. Now your mortgage payment's going from $1,300 to $1,500, $1,500 or $1,600, just because of the amount of interest that you're paying on the same note. We're talking about prospective mortgages, not people that already have mortgages, right? Your mortgage isn't changing. Again, side benefit of having a mortgage is you sort of get some built-in inflation hedge, right? But for prospective buyers and people that are looking to get a mortgage, if I'm looking in June and mortgage rates are 4% at $200,000, and then I'm looking in October where rates are 6.5%, 7% at $200,000, my potential payment's gone up $50 to $100 or more dollars a month just on interest rates alone. That's where the inflated home prices are great as an asset class. Cool. You're getting equity for free, sort of. Your net worth is going up. But now you're starting to see increased home prices and increased interest rates, and those two things together are really sort of you can't take both, right? You can't have both things as a buyer. For sellers, you're like, great, why I would rather have the high home value, but buyers can't afford both of those things, especially in a market like Cedar Rapids where things are really starting to accelerate in terms of home value and affordability. So I mean, that's kind of where we're at. I could talk all day about things, but I feel like I've already been talking for about 30 minutes, which is crazy. But I think, this is really how the market's starting to shape up. I would say a couple of key takeaways is we're not in the same market we were 30 days ago or even 60 days ago. And we're so much not in the same market that it's going to affect how quickly things sell and immediately start having an effect on home prices. Watch days on market. Watch list price or average price. Watch concessions. We've been seeing concessions come back in from sellers. We've been seeing closing funds being paid again, or closing credits being contributed by sellers. Obviously, inspections and appraisals. Contingent properties make their way back in. So if you're a buyer, yes, rates are a little high, but things are starting to shift back into your favor a little bit. Where do we go from here? Well, certainly, Jerome Powell hasn't been shy about letting people know that, they're not going to take their foot off the gas of this sort of quantitative tightening. They're not going to they're not going to release pressure off of reducing inflation too early. He said in very specific words, history has told us in dire terms not to let up too soon. And just because we see CPI coming down a little bit doesn't mean that we're out of the woods. In fact, what it means is it's more of probably a false positive, right? We're probably going to see another spike in that inflation, especially as people start to let their guard down and the market starts to head off again. So I would say definitely, keep watching, keep looking around. What are interest rates doing? How you could even look at sort of anecdotal things. Pay attention to signs in the yard. How long are they sitting there? Are you seeing sold go up as quickly as it was before? Are people doing open houses again? Open houses is a big indicator. We didn't need to do open houses for months because things were just selling too quickly. But now you do because they're sitting a little bit longer. So, as you know, and again, we will continue to put out this content, especially if you guys are enjoying it. Definitely would appreciate you guys engaging with it. Give it a like, share it around, ask questions, let us know where your thoughts are, what questions you have, if there are any data points you want to see, or particular questions about where things may be heading. We're here. We're local in Cedar Rapids. We're down in the New Boat District, and we're definitely open, to meeting you guys and having face-to-face conversations as well. So don't be scared to engage. Say hello when you see us. Let us know what you want to see. I appreciate you guys joining in, or if you're watching this, at a later point in time, appreciate that as well. It's Friday. We're walking into the weekend. Hope you guys have a great weekend. And until next time, we will see you guys later. Take it easy.